All right, hopefully that was helpful and useful to you. A few years ago, when I was starting Pathfinders, I had this dream, and I saw hundreds of women lined up, waiting patiently, to climb up a staircase that was probably the equivalent of 5 or 6 story buildings, and they were just climbing methodically up the staircase. And when they got to the top, they would just jump, committing suicide on the highway. And as much as I was driving by in the dream, and I got out of my car, I stopped, ran to each of the girls. Please, what are you doing? What are you doing? Why are you climbing? Why are you climbing? And nobody was answering me. They were just climbing the steps. And when they got to the top, they would commit suicide. And so as I woke up in the dream, it just dawned on me that, we need to really address, it's not just about, okay, let's just provide a temporary solution to this issue. We really need to address the root cause of why they're climbing up the steps in the first place. And so that was part of what I started thinking through when we were coming up with the theme for this particular workshop. And it was important to me to have Dr. Kemi come and speak about trauma. Because I think we take it, for those of us that may not have experienced trafficking or rape or any kind of sexual trauma, we almost take it for granted that people should be able to respond in what we would describe as a normal way, right? So I want to welcome Dr. Kemi, who is one of our psychologists at Pathfinder Justice Initiative. She's based in Lagos, a good friend and a sister of mine as well, to speak on the import of trauma. Thanks, sis.
Good afternoon, everyone. All right, it's a pleasure to be here today. I won't start with my slide, but okay. If you are born outside wedlock, there's something wrong with you. How many people believe that? How many people believe that? So if you're born outside wedlock, there's something wrong with you, even if your father claims you. People will always make reference to the fact that that boy, they had him, or maybe you were the reason why your parents had to forcefully come together. When I was 13, I don't know what I was looking for. Please don't ask me what. I just got into my father's room and I saw a journal. And in that journal, I saw my father wrote that I had sex with my friends and she got pregnant. He said that made me sad. Excuse me. He said I had sex with my wife or my friends and she got pregnant and that made me sad. What does that tell you? Were they happy to have me? And for about 15 years of my life, that word, that made me sad, became my partner. Because I saw myself as, I was not wanted. And so because I felt I was not wanted, my behavior and everything always followed the path of not wanted. That was my story. And then after a while, my parents had to relocate from Ilorin, Kwara State to Osun State. My dad is a medical doctor. And so because of that, they now left me with a family friend. And they said, University of Ilorin Secondary School seems to be one of the best schools at that time. There are no so much private schools like you have now. And he said, stay back with this Christian family friend. And that was what launched me into the journey of sexual abuse. And so the first time it happened, it was like my whole world went blank. You can imagine a child that was not wanted now launched into the world of sexual abuse too. When I went on holiday, I was like, God, thank God I've escaped, but I could not tell anybody. then when we got home, I loved reading novels. That was just my way of escape. Mills and Booms, Temptation, name them at that time. Anything. As long as it's readable, I would. So I had this Christian family too who had a room full of novels. And so I would go there, pick any one that I want, and then read, return. And then one day, I was there at the shelf looking for one to pick. And then the next thing was, I was grabbed from behind. And you know what came to my mind? There is something wrong with me. Not somewhere, with me. Because if something is not wrong with me, why would there be a sequence of events that seemingly seems not to be good? You know where we started from? I was not wanted, the sexual abuse the first time, and then the second time. And that sets on a feeling that I went through for more than 15 years of my life. I don't know how I got here. Don't even ask me. But I just know one way or the other, grace found me. And I am here. And no, it's something that we're going to deal with. When we're talking about the issue of trauma, we will look at the slide. Why not talking like this? Trauma holds significant meaning to the individual because of the perception that you have about it. Let me break it down to you. That there are some girls in Libya that today, kill them 1,001 times, they would go back. It does not matter to them. But there are some other people there, one-time experience will mar them for the rest of their life. You now begin to wonder, what makes the difference? Is it a function of the fact that they are black or someone light-skinned? Or maybe they are from Benin, or the other ones are from which other parts of the country? No. It has nothing to do with that. It has a lot to do with our psychological framework, the kind of experiences that we have had in the past, and how willing people are ready to deal with their lives. So when we're looking at the import of trauma, quite a lot of us have experienced trauma one way or the other. Armed robbery attack. Let me see your hand. Go, go, go. Open your door. Abby?
Yes, sir.
Has it not happened?
Yes, sir.
How long were you able to deal with it? 10 years. Till today.
If I see any young boy, then I'll say, see how I think you can.
Car accident. You were seeing it was about to happen. And then the next thing it still happened. A lot of us have experienced trauma. And let's look at the story of this young girl. She's a 35 Nigerian-old woman who was gang raped at the age of 16 on her way from high school. Okay, so this might look like just an ordinary case study, but I tell you that in the course of my work, I've had cases like this. One of the ones that had stuck with me for so many years was a case of a young girl who lost her mom at the age of 9. She went to live with her grandma, and then the so-called uncle raped her when she was 10. And for 3 years, he was always having sex with her every night. For 3 years, until he left the house and he went to the university. In secondary school, this girl was also raped severally. Our first day in the university, I don't know what she was looking for, but she happened to be walking along the paths late at night, and then a group of cultists met her and raped her. She was traveling back from Lagos to Benin one of those days. Their car had an accident. Their car had a problem. And then so while they were trying to work on it, a group of guys came at them again, stole their money, and also still raped this girl. Okay. What did you say? You said something. Share with us now. It's funny, we want to laugh together.
Okay, I just murmur something. What does she have to do with this very people?
about some of those things that happen. She's from NFM. She's from NFM. What other thoughts do we have? What other thoughts do we have? We have a deliverance minister here. Abby, who wants to help us conduct a deliverance service? But the truth is this. Sometimes, as we will go on, you will see that sometimes when people have been traumatized once, it makes them so vulnerable to situations like that. Not because they are under a spell on a course. You know why we're having something like this today? It's because if you go with the mindset of she's under a course into therapy or counseling, you will not help the person. Do you understand that? If you're going into a therapy session, you must devote yourself. I have helped 1,001 people who had either been sexually trafficked or who had been sexually abused. But most times, until maybe towards the end, I don't do self-disclosure. If I do at the beginning of the session, it's because I know there is a bit of resistance in this individual. And so by sharing my story, it helps them oftentimes to open up. You understand what I'm saying? I was sexually abused twice, 2 different scenarios. Was there something on my body? Don't forget that this individual too is also going on with a feeling of worthlessness. They're often having a feeling of guilt. And so the pain is there. And so when we come with attitudes like this, what it does is, we lose them, and then we may lose them forever. And so this young lady, after her experience, she began to live with a trauma. She said, I was in a state of fear. And so each time she's there, it's like something is about to happen. You can imagine that feeling of dread that somebody will have to live with for the rest of their life. Let me also last like this. All right, so we're saying the American Psychological Association has defined trauma as emotional response that you have to a negative event. Please, let's also understand that the event must have a meaning to you before you respond to it. And so if it does not hold a meaning, then nothing happens. It is not all events that everybody responds to. Okay? But it must hold a meaning to you, your belief about it. I started by sharing my story because, yes, in this part of the world, we usually believe that marriage is like the seal, the blessing. And so when a child is not giving birth under that marriage blessing, something is wrong. And so if you have that belief, and then you now discover you're the one that is giving birth to, it goes with you. And then it forms the foundation of your existence as an individual. And so when you are having session or having encounter, we must go deeper than just traveling to Libya. Do you understand what I'm saying? We must go deeper than going to Mali. Because the root of going to Mali might not even just be the financial situation. And so you must explore what significance, what meaning does all that had happened in the life of this individual, what meaning do they have in them? Let's move. Okay, so we're saying it's a normal reaction. How many of us believe that? You don't believe it. Come, let me slap you and let's see maybe you're still standing. Come now. Who is the heaviest person here? Okay? When things like this happens, there is a normal reaction that is evoked on the inside of us. When people go through different experiences, it brings something, it connotes something, it brings out an emotion on the inside of them. But we are saying the effect can also be severe and it can interfere with the functioning of the individual. And so when we're talking about functioning, we are not just talking about rehabilitating them and giving them money to start working. We are also saying it's still about them being able to look at all the facets of their lives. we're talking about physical, we talk about psychological, we talk about mental, we talk about spiritual, we talk about occupational. So all of those parameters are very, very important if you will help an individual to be able to function. And like I have said that, not everybody that goes through a stressful event will have trauma. Some people are able to do well with it because of what we call resilience, the ability to bounce back. You know, when you bounce a ball, what happens to the ball? It bounces up. Yes. So quite a lot of people are also able to bounce and then they are able to bounce back. Let's move on, then I will start. So we'll talk about the several types of trauma that we have. We'll talk about the acute. The acute is the one that happens one time and it doesn't happen again. And so for a lot of people, they can get over it. The other one is the chronic, that has to do with child abuse, the trafficking, the domestic violence, and quite a lot of other things like that. And so because why we say it's chronic is because this individual has to live in it. This person is staying there. So it's a continuous thing that is being, continuous harm that is being perpetrated on their psychic, their level of functioning. You can imagine when the man wakes up in the morning and starts calling you, Ewu, 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 Ewu. What is Ewu? How many people are from? Okay. When an individual starts hearing that on a continuous basis, it forms what we know as chronic. And might even set the template for the complex trauma. And that's why I said it's important to go deep. It's not when you're doing assessment or when you're interacting, you don't want to hear the stories of what happened in Libya. You're not after the story. If you must help the individual to be able to heal and deal with the trauma, then you must understand all that have happened in their life and then begin to pick out core points from all of it. And so we are talking about the complex. The complex is the type that some of our girls have to go from one thing to another. And sometimes, like our deliverance minister said, that it's just part of the class now. All right. Sometimes you will now begin to wonder, is this person actually cursed? Don't forget, we are part of this world. We cannot take us from our cultural environment. And cultural beliefs too can also mark or help us. It helps us in the sense that it helps you to understand where this individual is coming from. Okay? But it would mark if you now put that belief as the core of what you'll be using as intervention for this individual. Let's move. Okay, so the sources of trauma, we've been able to mention some of them. Accidents, rape, bullying. Do you know as I don't want to use the word small. I'm looking for another English. Who will borrow me English? Minute, thank you. As minute as bullying seems to be, do you know that it might form the basis of some of those things that we're looking at? Do you get that? As minute as bullying is, when a child is not given a voice in the family, when the child is always shut down, keep quiet, what are you talking about? It might form the basis. So when we are talking about the sources, it's not just because of the things that we see later now. It's marked because of the childhood experiences and some of the ways that this individual had lived his or her life. Move on. Okay, I'm going to spend quite a lot of time on this, and that's why I'm trying to just rush up to get here. We're talking about the impact of trauma on the mind, the soul, and the body. What happens when an individual has a significant experiences that affects them? You know, sometimes, how many people have heard this word? When somebody says, oh, I am depressed, they will say, snap out of it. That's it. So somebody should tell me, please, how do they snap out of depression? Huh? Do something. Just ignore it. Is that not what we say? Or read the Bible. Or sing psalms. Go see a movie. Or take ice cream and chocolates. Oh God. But the truth is, nobody snaps out of depression. Hello? As nobody can snap out of trauma. Because it is internalized. What happened is not just on the physical. The girl that was sexually abused, it was not just because her vagina was torn, it was because it had a cognitive interpretation to her. And because of the cognitive interpretation that it has to have, it's affected her psychological. And so her belief system had been damaged at that point in time. And there's a way our mind functions. So when an individual goes through a traumatic situation, their body seemingly becomes the crime scene. So this individual had been pushed down. This individual had been sexually violated. I remember the story of a young girl who the mother brought to my office. She's 16. Yes, at the time I saw her 2 years ago. The mother had to go to school, and then the best person to leave her with is who? Is it not the father? The father is a medical doctor. And so she was 8 years at that time. She was not a small girl. So the mom went and left her there with the father, thinking all was well. You know this song that was singing in church? It is well. Thank you. Okay. And the mother came the first year, and I found out that this girl, who used to be very, very happy, joyful, smiling, just became so withdrawn. And that's the number one sign. This girl became so withdrawn, and the mom was like, what's happening? What happened? She's not jumping, she's not shouting. And the father said, just leave her, ignore her. Maybe she's bothered about something. What would make her to be bothered when I am here? And eventually, about 3-4 years down the line, after the mother finished and came back home, she knew there was a problem, but she could just not identify the source. She now said she was taking the girl every day to church in front of the altar. And she will now say, God, please help my daughter. Something is wrong with her. I don't know. She's not talking to me. Maybe she will talk to you. God bless our mothers. African mothers. And funny enough, it worked. The girl one day now wrote a long letter and gave it to the mom. I said, don't open it here. Write on the envelope until you get home. The mother said no, she couldn't wait till she get home. She opened the envelope and saw the content. She said it was like her world blew apart. She could not just wrap her head around the fact that your dad, my husband, and it's been going on for more than 5 years. I am not talking about a low lifer now. I am talking about a medical doctor. The crime scene was this girl's body. It had been violated. She's wearing a beautiful gown. You know, when she came in this morning, somebody was calling her a fashionista. Fashionista mama. I heard it. Yeah, I heard it. Sorry. I'm a clinical psychologist, so I'm meant to pick up lots of things. But as beautiful as she is, let's just imagine some of these people that is helping out with serving just mistakenly pour oil. What would happen with this dress and that fashionista style? Somebody does it like this. It's going to go down, right? Because as far as she's concerned, she's been disfigured. She's not portraying the image that she wants again. Before trauma happens to an individual, we have an image of who we are. There's this thing in us that makes us to feel like this is me. You know, sometimes when somebody tells you and say, you are adding up weight, you look at yourself in the mirror and say, I'm still okay now. I mean, that's the image you have of yourself. Except you have a problem. When somebody tells you that you're fine, you want to check the mirror again and say, oh girl, please say it again. But when crime happens, when an individual has been traumatized, at that point in time, their body feels violated, it feels dirty, it feels damaged. That is what happens to the body. But it now translates not just because of the violation on the body, it translates to the mind. And that was why I started with, it must have a meaning for you as an individual. At that point in time, this person does not want to have anything to do with that body again. Like she would not want to wear this dark clothes all through the class today. And that's why oftentimes, when you ask people who are survivors, why didn't you leave? They will tell you, I feel numbed. Have you not heard it? Why didn't you fight back? I just couldn't. It was like time froze. And they could not just think again. They could not think of what to do. They could not think of what actions to take. So at that point in time, they want to get out. And I have seen for a fact that sometimes some people, when they get out of their body during traumatic experience, they don't come back. They don't come back not because they die, but that is the end of their psychological functioning. You will just see them, they become a vegetable. So you start calling their names, they are not just there again. A young girl was brought to an hospital, a psychiatric hospital. And this young lady was talking out of what we called hallucinations, talking to imaginary things, seeing things that nobody can see. But what was her experience? Her experience was the fact that she was sexually violated. The day it happened was the day she lost her life. She didn't die. But she became less functional. She couldn't function. She couldn't cope with anything again. If she called her name, she does not even know what her name was. She seems locked up in a place. You know, like being in a cocoon, and then you feel this is the only place I am saving. And so, when that happens again, there's this mental feeling of shame. You know, we know what is right, and we know what is not right. Because while we started growing up, we have been instilled with the culture of this is right, and this is not right. And that is why nobody will stand here and poo-poo on their body. Who will do that? Because we know it's not right. And so if you must use the convenience, where would you go to? You will locate it. And so because from where we started growing up, there's something that we call, I don't want to go into too much theoretical, but there's something that we call, there's a part of psychology that we call the Freudian theory, psychoanalysis. It talks about the id, ego, and the super-ego. The id always wants, I want, I want, I want. That is the principle. And that's why you see a child, he will suck the mother's breast outside. The child will pee anywhere. But when that child starts growing up, training has started happening. What happens to that id level? It goes down. And so you know what is right and what is not right. And so when an individual is traumatized sexually, they understand that what has happened is not right. And that internalized judgment that we have, which we call conscience, rises up. And so it places you on the stand, and what it tells you is, what has happened to you is not good. And when the id tells you, when your conscience now tells you that it's not good, who are you to start arguing? So all that you will do is you will just take the verdict and say thank you, and then you go away. Let's move on. Okay? And so they feel shame, they feel numb, a loss of self comes. Don't forget, when we started, I said everybody has an image of who they want to be, right? There's something that we call the ideal self. The ideal self is who I want to be. And everybody has that mental image. The real self is who I am now. And so if there is a wide gap between the ideal and the real, it creates problem. For this individual now, there is a loss of self because what they want to be is far apart from what they are now because of what has happened to them. And so because of that, they lose the self-value of self, and then they become defined by their experience. And so when you call them and tell them, oh, you can do this, they tell you, I cannot. Because there is an internalized sense in them that is telling them, you are not good enough. And that affects them. And so sometimes they do or live just the way the society has made them to be. All right, let's move on. And so we're saying when the body speaks what the mind cannot. How many of us have heard our mind speak before? So what did your mind tell you about your starroot?
Depends on the situation. Intuition, leave this place right now. Something bad is about to happen.
Sometimes there's this sense that comes and then it translates to and then you need to move. I agree with that. But oftentimes, our mind does not actually speak by itself. It connects with our emotions. And that is why you can see somebody's emotion on their face. I know that some people have a blank face, that whether they are happy or sad, you cannot read it. But for a lot of people, naturally when you look at them, you can say they are happy, you can say they are not happy. But with this, you remember we said the mind has gone numb. There is a sense of judgment. And so because of that, the body begins to show reactions. And that is when you now begin to see flashbacks. You begin to see unexplained rage. You begin to have uncontrollable outbursts of emotion. Some people cannot control their impulses. For some people, when they have traumatic experience like that, and there's this emotional tumor on the inside of them, the only way they can relieve it is to have sex with somebody else. Because that is the way their mind is functioning. And so if you understand that, it helps you to understand what exactly is going on with this individual without judging them. And quite a lot of things. For some people, there are aches and pain. They do all the tests in the world. The doctor tells you no typhoid, no malaria, no nothing. But yet there are aches, there are pain because this individual is going through depression. Let's go on. All right. And then part of it again is the fact that there could be physical symptoms too. Sometimes they are not able to sleep. You can imagine closing your eyes, and then the next thing you saw is when they now held you down, and somebody was tearing your clothes. And each time you just like reliving the scene of that clothes tearing. And sometimes that is why when you give them money, and they even want to make decision, that thing, if it's not properly dealt with in therapy, the flashbacks, the emotions rises up. It brings them down. So it's like having an image of you looking dirty, unwanted, unclean, standing before you. You will not most likely not be able to achieve anything unless it is silenced and dealt with. And so you find out that yes, they go through aches, pain. A lot of times they are not able to sleep. A lot of time, at least for quite a lot of them that have walked away, you find out that sleep is the number one thing that becomes an issue with them. Because each time they relieve, we're going to go to reenacting as we move on. They relieve the situation, they relieve the scenario, not because they want to, but because
The mind keeps bringing it back for them all the time.
hello? There's something that we call the conscious. Sorry, I don't want to go theoretical, but I just want us to understand it. Can we see this, please? So, this is like the whole human mind. Maybe I should just put a question for us. Where is our mind? Where is our mind? Inside our body. I know it's inside our body, it's not outside. Where is our mind? If I know, these people, where is our body? Somebody do like this. Huh? Somebody do like this. Say, where is our mind? Somebody do like this. This one, our mind is outside. Where is our mind? It's here. Inside this class. Nobody will take their mind away when they're going. You know, the traditional belief is when you say mind, people will like, I have mind. Abi? But the truth is, our mind is an abstract. It can't be seen. It's believed to be located somewhere in the brain. But what I was even trying to bring out is the fact that a lot of what we are aware of is small compared with what we are not aware of. And that is what we call the subconscious. And it's this subconscious that oftentimes releases information to the conscious. That even when you are not aware of it, information slips out into sometimes dreams. Then they have nightmares. They start shouting, screaming, then it's all that. No, it's enough. You shouldn't have dealt with it. No, it's because somehow it's been repressed there. And this individual is not able to function as much as they should function. Okay, so let's look at the factors that determine the effect of trauma on the body. Look at their characteristics. Who is this individual? When you have a basic understanding of the personality of this individual, it will determine whether they can push through or not. There are some people that will call the borderline. The borderline people are very emotional people. That even when cockroach is walking by, you see them say, and then it's well, is it not a very cockroach? You understand? But that's them. And then you now have some people that let this whole world be falling down. They will tell you, I can carry it with my hand. Nothing shakes them. And say, oh, nothing will happen. You understand? When people like that are traumatized, it might not have a lot of huge effects on them, but that does not mean it does not affect them. What it meant is they had stockpiled it somewhere. And that's why sometimes when people have a shift and then they go into mental illness, it takes something as small as this virus to tilt them to the other side because they've been stockpiling a lot. And then you talk about the presence of other mental health conditions. You talk about issues of previous trauma. God forbid, with what I went through, then they now take me to Libya. I'm sure I'm not going to come back. You can imagine that, yeah. Because what had happened was even very, very traumatic for me. It dealt with me for years. Then something huge now happens. Then the events as well as the background and emotion to handle. Some people, when they are traumatized, they don't have the support. And you know one of the reasons why people fall back and not able to move it is because sometimes the things that we say to them, the words, our society, as soon as they are landing at the airport, how do we see them? Returnees. But even when we are saying returnees, in what exactly are we saying? Look at them. Libya people. Prostitutes. We have a lot of tag and labels for them. And that's what also puts them down. And that affects them. And so we'll move on to reenactment now. And it's about reliving the situation for quite a long time. How many of us remember some of the things that we did when we were children? How many people? You can't remember? Is it Nigeria's situation? You know, there's this 10-10 that we used to do then. I don't know how they do the 10-10 again. But we did 10-10. Thank God we don't fall that way.
But you know, there are a lot of things that even now you will try to recollect because they are pleasant.
You will remember the day that maybe they took you to the super mall, or when something nice happened, or they bought you a new clothes, and things like that. Those are pleasurable. So reenactment also happens even with survivors too. And there are reasons why it happens. One, because they want to be able to deal with their pains. And so allowing them to talk about it is something that helps them to be able to go through. Let them relieve it. Because sometimes, you know why this is very important? Is because sometimes they have a very confused scenario of what happened. In their play-by of what had happened or what they had gone through, some they had over-magnified, some they had even underplayed. And so when we reenact with them, it helps them to be able to really understand what had happened, and in that way, they would be able to now talk about it specifically. So reenactment is not all bad. But when it is now bad is when the ego defenses, the body way of dealing with things is down. And then they are not able to function as much as they should function adequately. And that creates lots of issues for them as individual. And so when it is maladaptive, the individual may not be able to function as well as they should. And then it brings on what we call learned helplessness. They see themselves in a situation where they can't just move on and they can't function again. And so when we're talking about all of these things, we're looking at how do we then move on. It's not just enough for us to talk about it, it's also enough for us to look at it. But then there was this question that came up earlier when somebody said, is it giving them money as individuals that is appropriate, or giving them money as a group? And the young lady said individual. And the truth is, yes, I would agree, individual. But then sometimes, you know, the group dynamics also work. The group dynamics could be a ginger for some because we don't all have the same strength. And so it's important to first of all assess, understand individuals' ability, understand their weaknesses, understand their strengths and the opportunities that are bound for them before you now take a decision. Some people need to be dragged along, even if they had not been involved in sexual trafficking. Okay? So that's just them naturally. But now this that we're looking at is what helps survivors to be able to recover, and not just recover, to be able to regain their capacity for functioning. And it's an approach that integrates all domains. Marita Ruth, when she was answering earlier, she said, if the client says, I don't want to go to the police station, what do you do? Well, you know, sometimes what do we now say to them? You don't want to go to police station. It's a lie. Because we feel that is just the normal route. No. It's about an individualized approach that gives decision to them. You're able to make your decision as an individual. And you're able to say, this is exactly what I want, and this is how I want it to be done, and then we'll be able to move on. And so it creates an opportunity that the right of the individual is respected. Let's move on. So what are the rights? To be treated with dignity and respect, irrespective of what their experiences have been. And that's why you cannot sit in the seat of judgment. You're there as a support. You're there to help them go through, navigate their experiences effectively. To be able to choose a course of action. So what do you think, or how do you think, or what do you want us to do about this? It's theirs to answer, not yours to begin to now brainstorm and say, oh, we must wake up the police station because of that. We must, if they don't want to, because don't forget, dignity is still part of what we're talking about here. And so, that little that is still remaining for some of them, they want to preserve it as much as possible. And then again, privacy, confidentiality. So not that, yes, you now hear their story on CNN, that's that girl. And then also, it's not discriminatory in nature, and then you help them to be able to make the right decision. So now I'll talk about the negative. Why did you go? The first speaker said it earlier. Have you not heard? Sometimes I work with substance abuse patients, and then you hear, have you never heard that cannabis makes people mad? They said, yeah, we've heard, but we still, people will always still make their choices in life. Because there are lots of things that surrounds making choices, feeling powerless, shame, and quite a lot of other things like that. Let's move on. How many minutes do I have more? Okay. All right, so maybe if we're ahead with things, then we're good to go. What is a trauma-informed Now, this is also very, very important. Because the trauma-informed care is what helps you to be able to connect with your patients, clients, the survivors. It's individualistic, but then it's also holistic. It helps you to look at various domains. And what does it believe? It believes that every one of us had gone through one form of trauma or the other. So they work with that assumption, whether you tell them or not. And so in managing individual survivors, please let's understand the roots, the background, the place they are coming from. The fact that somebody tells you that we didn't have money when we were growing up, you will not say, and so? No, you didn't live their experience. You were not in their shoes. You were not there on days when they did not have gari and anything to eat. You were not there on days when they had to walk barefooted. You were not there when they had fears of what tomorrow was going to be. And remember, every experience holds a different meaning to the individual. So if you don't forget that, it helps you to be able to understand the individual. And then you're also not even just understanding that individual. You're also understanding the impact that it has on you as well. People have heard people's story here and then you start crying. Abi, thank you. I didn't cry the first day I heard. But I was meant to be taking notes and be jotting down very, very salient. At the point in time, I didn't know I had dropped my pen until they finished. And it was not like, you now ask them to now start all over again so that I could get the salient things I wanted to. But I was held bound by, man, this experience that I dropped my pen. When it now finished, I realized that I was meant to be taking notes, but I couldn't do that. So sometimes it has effect on us too. I know there is a place where we're talking about the impact of all of this on, so I won't go into all of that. But then it looks at three basic elements, realizing the prevalence of trauma. Trauma abounds everywhere. And then you must understand that every individual, one way or the other, had experienced trauma. Understand the impact on the individual as well as the community, and then we must also put that knowledge into practice. So all that we're doing here is also to make us a better person, better individual, so that all that people had, the effects and everything that we have looked at, we're saying, yes, it has quite huge impact on them. Move on. And so the principles of this is about safety, choice, collaboration, trustworthiness, and empowerment. Where it starts from is safety. They must have this feeling. Safety is not because we're in this house, that's why we are safe. Is that what it means? Is that what safety means to you? No. But you have this assurance that nothing is going to happen. There's this security that you have that all is well. There's this calmness, there's this peace within. That's what safety is all about. And you must respect them, you must value them, you must be seen as an individual. That's where it starts from. And that is what is going to ensure trust. Somebody was saying they don't open up. They will not open up. I talked with some of them. It is even sometimes when we had finished sessions, and they will now say, hello, Dr. Kemi, I just want to share something with you. And okay, talk on. And then we just start chatting, and then they will talk about something that they had said that they didn't want to tell anybody. So rapport building is something that takes time. It takes real time for them to be able to build rapport with you and be able to open up. And so if you must ensure that, then you also must be consistent and maintain a professional boundary with them. So it's not about why they must see it. It must be at their level. And then choice is about them seeing themselves as, oh, this is my... I saw a young girl last week. She was depressed. And the major problem was the fact that she said, it's like I was choiceless. And that was her problem. Sometimes when life takes away everything from you, and if you look to the right and to the left and there's no way to go to, that's where helplessness and hopelessness steps in. And so for what they had gone through, we must not make it look as if they don't even have a choice again. And so we must give them a choice, we must collaborate with them in planning. Don't make it your plan, make it their plan. And if you're going to make it their plan, then they must be involved in what it is that you're doing. And then empowerment now comes. If we have not been able to do all of this, and then we now empower, there's going to be a problem. Benedicta is not here. I got a call last week from one of our survivors. I don't know if she shared it with you. I was like, oh, what I wanted to do is not what I am doing. How? After about 2 years. You can imagine. I said, but that is not what I am doing at all. I have to just calm her down, take her through. Okay, just think what you want to do and things like that. Empowerment is not something that somebody will just launch into, like you're launching into the deep. No. They must be psychologically balanced to be able to do that. Because remember what we said, that conscious thing, that flashback, that memory is something that will always keep on triggering in them. And then it could take up a lot of things that will not allow them to be able to function as much as possible. So the last thing we'll talk about is if you're rehabilitating them, what do you look at? One, they have said it, so I'm not going to repeat it. Do not harm. That's the principle of beneficence. Do not harm. If you cannot help them, if you know your spiritual belief, if you know your cultural belief, and everything that you have cannot help them, just transfer them to the other person. There's something that we call in psychology transference and counter-transference. Somebody will just look like your mommy. This person looked like that my auntie that was wicked to me that time. And then she will now come into therapy. What will you do with that? What are you doing there? Get out, sure. And that is what your reaction will be throughout you will not be able to help her. Please refer them back to the other person and reassign them. Let somebody else help them. The truth is, we cannot help them all. So don't say, oh, because they have assigned this girl to me, then I must. No, you don't have to. As long as you know you're going to cause harm. The beneficence is empowering and allowing them to be able to function. Health maximization, it's about the best that you can do, the best that you can provide. Now, this is also where there is a problem because it must be balanced. So what seems to be the best for me might not be the best. And that's why individuality is very, very important if we're going to help people deal with it. Efficiency, respect for autonomy. It's about bringing the individual into treatment, allowing them to be part of what it is that you're doing, allowing them to also hear from them. One of the major things is we don't listen. They talk, but we don't listen. I say listening is not about hearing somebody talk. It's about picking up what they have not said. The intended meaning, the tone of voice, the body languages are things that actually connect a lot to us. So we must be able to do all that. Getting them justice and proportionality in all of these things. Please let's move to the last slide. I'm out of this place. But I you just looking at me and saying,